everyone. Today we have a arcade monitor in front of us. This is the Toshiba D29C051. It is an automatic tri-syncing monitor. So it syncs to 15K, 24K and 31K automatically. Simply by plugging in one of the respective sources, the monitor will switch to that sync range automatically. This one was manufactured in 2004, so it's quite a late CRT model. It's pure flat, if I haven't already mentioned that, 29 inches or 68 centimeters in size. It's used in a number of different arcade machines from Sega and perhaps Namco as well. But it's this particular one comes out of a new Net City arcade cabinet, Sega one. The Dreamcast is running on it right now, VGA. There's the Dreamcast. I've got a step down powering everything, the Dreamcast and the monitor. The monitor takes from 100 to 120 volts. It's sitting in its frame, fastened to its frame, which is good for just sitting on benches and obviously putting it into the cabinet. I'll show you the cabinet later. So around the back here we've got a chassis, not a massive chassis, but pretty much standard size by arcade measures. I'll just turn the volume down a little bit. We've got some ID up here on the top. Now there is some confusion I've noticed on identification of this thing. Now we've got to talk about part numbers. Now that part number there that I mentioned before, D29C051, I believe that actually refers to everything that you can see right now. So that's the chassis, the monitor and the frame. Sometimes the chassis is identified with that part number, but that is technically wrong. Let me just go into my notes. The part number for the chassis is actually DS-7209A. That's actually on the chassis itself, so that's correct. That's the correct name for the chassis. There's your yoke. It's a single focus CRT neck board there. I've sort of bypassed the normal cable that plugs in to give the power. There's my power cable, just plugs straight into the corner there. I've disconnected the original one. I don't have the typical power connector, a JST one. See that 3-pin JST connector there? That's normally what the arcade machine would have, a cable running from its power supply entering that to power the monitor, but I've just bypassed it and plugged my power supply straight in. The next socket there, another JST connector, is for your RGB in. It'll take composite sync and separate sync, but they both need to be pure syncs. I don't think you'll get away with plugging in composite video as your sync source. And then there's the third and final connector, the input, the VGA style one, which I'm using with the Dreamcast now. That's just easy and widespread type of connection rather than JST. The chassis has no regular pots. There might be some on there, but they're not really ones for adjusting screen properties. They're probably more for chassis voltages and so forth. The tube, of course, is a Toshiba A68 LTF356X, made in Japan, of course. Full Japanese affair, very late model, 2004, as we said before. What else can I say about it? The actual controls for the monitor, the screen properties are on this tiny little PCB. It's got a nice, generous long cable, which is very handy. I'm going to talk a lot more about this little board in a moment. I'll turn it around to get the correct orientation. So you've got de Gauss there on the left, down, up and function. It's all controlled or visible on screen with on-screen display. That's how you adjust all the properties with this monitor. And I'm just going to show you something else that's available to buy. This is not a genuine Toshiba or Sega part. This is actually made by the guys at Team Neo Arcadia. My friend actually got this for me. I haven't dealt with Team Neo Arcadia, but they produced this board which actually gives you extended menus, gives you more functionality with this monitor, which is terrific, because there are actually secret menus in the monitor to give you further screen adjusting properties. and they're only accessible by modifying the existing board or getting one of these new plug-in ones. So I'm going to definitely show you that. Alright, let's get things ready and I'll continue filming. Actually, just before I turn the camera off to get things ready, if I didn't say it before, this game is Sternwind for the Dreamcast. Sort of a homebrew game. I've barely played it, but it's looking very nice on the monitor indeed. So I've still got the Dreamcast running and I've got a pure white screen on display. The camera may not pick that up correctly, but that's what is on the screen. There's two reasons why I've got a white screen up in front. One is to show you the on-screen display. It's easy to see when you've got a white screen in the background. So now I've got this Team Neo Arcadia board plugged in. I'll show you what functionality is normally available by the Toshiba board. So you can do everything on this third-party board that you can do on the Toshiba one plus extras, but I'll show you what is normally only available. So normally you have the ability to adjust contrast, I'll get that up again, contrast, brightness, horizontal size, horizontal position, vertical size, vertical position, reset to factory default, and exit. So you got the basics there, which is great, but that's the limitation of the standard board. So with the extra functionality of this board, you've got a fairly big range of geometry controls, and I haven't been through all of these, but pin cushion, trapezoid or parabola, various things like that. So there's at least 10 extra options that this gives you already. And then there's a further menu for RGB adjustments. So you get quite a lot of extra functionality with the extra board functions buttons here to access that. Like I said before, you can modify your existing board, but there is a bit of work to it to get that to get the extra commands, and I'll put a link in the video to show you that. And the other reason why I have this white screen up is because a white screen is very good for noticing burning in a tube. Now, arcade monitors, it's very common to get burning in them, and Toshiba tubes, Sega machines are no exception at all. It's more the rule than the exception to get burning. But I think I can't say for absolute certainty that there's no burning, but it's absolutely minimal. I would class it as having no burning, but I might just go for a wander with the camera and give you an idea of what sort of burning these things suffer. So I'm going to move around in the shed here a bit. I've got a few arcade cabinets. I don't know if we're going to be able to pick this up very well. But this is a new Net City cabinet. There's actually two here. And I've done a tube swap. I've put a curved the Neo, but this one's got really bad burn-in with Virtua Tennis 3. You should be able to see that. You can see the writing, the Virtua there, but that's got some pretty bad burn-in, and that's very common with that game. I'm just lucky that this tube doesn't have any burn-in, but my tip is if you're going to look for burn-in, either have a white screen when it's turned on or have the monitor off, get it into daylight, broad daylight, with the tube turned off, and just examine the grey, and you'll see burn-in, no worries at all. That's the two methods I would use to determine the burn-in level. Now I'm going to put on a 15K source. Actually no, I'll put on a hatch pattern with the Dreamcast here. There's the grid pattern up, and it's not perfect by any means, but when are they? You basically need a Sony BVM to get pretty much close to perfection, or as close as you're going to get. But I tell you what, it is still very, very impressive to see that pattern. Some very slight bends around the edges, but boy, it's sharp, and the convergence is pretty good again near the corners. It gets a little bit out, but overall very impressive stuff. Let's go on to some 15K material. I'm about to put on the PlayStation. When this monitor is powered but with no signal going into it, it will display no signal on the screen. That's useful to know in case you've just acquired the monitor or you're testing it somewhere at its location and you don't have a source to plug into, because a lot of monitors aren't going to say anything when you turn them on. You're not going to be totally sure, but that's what you do expect to see, is the no signal being displayed. PlayStation turning on now. PlayStation boot up screen is 15K interlace. This is a PAL model, but it's modded and it's going to boot an NTSC game, but anyway, it's interlaced, 50 Hz, and there's no problem with the display. That some monitors do have trouble with interlaced 15K, more arcade monitors anyway, cheaper ones. So it gets a pass there. The game is Rockman. Probably should get some different games to show everyone. I do use this one a lot, but it's just a nice sort of basic, colourful game to play and look at. It's one that I'm used to seeing on a lot of different monitors, so it's what I use my eye to judge upon. Right, so I'll get into the game and I'll show you some more capabilities of the monitor, of its ability to be adjusted. Go to cut man stage. Cut man. Okay. So right now the screen is centered pretty well, horizontally and vertically. It's filling the screen. It's where it needs to be at, or very close to it. Bring up the, I guess you could call it, service menu for the monitor, like I did before in 31K mode. Horizontal size. Let's have a look at how big the range is for the horizontal size. Let's shrink it first of all. Right, so it's shrinking. It's going to reach 0 soon. So where it's at now is quite narrow. That's very narrow by the comparisons against televisions and all other CRT displays. That's really drawn it in. That range is quite impressive. Go back into it again. Let's stretch it back out. Getting there, filling the screen almost full. So it's back where it was originally, about full. Let's see how much further it goes. So it's on 166. Let's see how much it can go further. Still going. So it can go a fair bit further than even full screen. And that's not to be underestimated either. I've got another Tri-Sync monitor, different brand altogether, that performs fairly well in 31K. You can stretch the screen out, get it full, but in 15K mode you can't stretch the width enough to get full screen, so it really hampers the performance of the monitor, but not this one. Let's test its vertical size ability. Let's again shrink it down. Still shrinking. Alright, it's reached 0, so again you can squash the vertical size immensely. It's probably something that's not going to be that useful to people, but the ability to increase the size is definitely valuable. So again, we're about full screen there at 182. Still going, still stretching further. 255. So again, we can add quite a lot of vertical size if we need to. So yeah, very, very capable monitor with width and vertical size. It's the same as another Nanayo I'm thinking of. Probably a lot of them do it. They just really have that good ability to stretch really far. It's probably because of the various different arcade boards out there and the need to stretch screen properties to get them to fill up the screen. And that's where arcade monitors really excel, I think, over televisions and even presentation monitors. They just have that ability. That's pretty much the end of the video, but I think this thing performs really well in 31K, really well in 15K, even 24K. I had Daytona, the arcade board here last night, running that at 24K, and it looked really good. So I don't think there's any compromise when you go from 15 to 31 and 24 with the Toshiba here. It could compete quite well with the dedicated 15, dedicated 24 or 31. I think it's really just that good. It's sharp, it's clear, reds are beautiful. It's probably one of the best CRTs I've ever seen, and yeah, it's a beauty. It's late technology, advanced CRT technology, 2004. It just makes you wish CRT would have kept going and they could have continued to even get better, I suppose. But as it is, it's a beautiful monitor, and I'm highly recommended. Just watch out for the burn in, as I said before. And one more thing to add is that the monitor by default its contrast is set at 100, which is maximum. That's how it comes out of the factory. When I reset it in the menu to default factory setting, it's set at maximum. I don't really recommend that. Certainly not as an arcade operator. There's no wonder these things get burnt in, but right now it's about 85 or 87, and you could even go lower than that and it would still look great. So probably best to turn the contrast down for sure. Anyhow, just watch out for burning in these things. Keep an eye out for it. If you can get one of these monitors, it's great. Thanks for watching, and I've got more stuff to put up on YouTube in the future. So again, thank you and keep watching. Bye.